Are you starting or managing a nonprofit organization this year? You might be feeling a little turbulence in the air. In this video, I'm going to share some of the latest nonprofit trends from the independent sector's Health of the U.S. Nonprofit Trends Report and what you can do to ride them out safely. Welcome back. I'm Amber Melanie Smith. Hello, if we haven't met before. I'm a nonprofit founder and executive director, and I make these videos here on YouTube to help people create a social impact. That can be through starting a nonprofit or a social enterprise or socially conscious business or leadership in your community and so much more. I hope that you find this video useful and helpful to you in your social impact journey. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And as always, if you're looking for trainings on starting a nonprofit or creating a sustainable fundraising plan, check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, where I have some of those offerings. The world continues to change and evolve even a couple years after the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. So how are nonprofits faring, and what are some of the trends we're going to need to be on the lookout for and be able to navigate successfully? As I mentioned before, I'm going to focus this video on that question. I'm going to be drawing inspiration and information from the independent sector's latest report all about these trends, the Health of the U.S. Nonprofit Sector 2022. So let's get into that. And for each of the data points I'm going to cite from the report in the following section, I'm going to describe what it is, but I'm also going to describe how I think it's going to impact those in the nonprofit world working on the ground, and a couple of tips for what we might be able to do to mitigate some of the threats coming at us or ride them out successfully. After all, what good is data if we can't take action on it? Number one is inflation, and I'm sure this comes as a huge surprise to nobody. And inflation impacts nonprofits in a number of ways. In March 2022, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics cited an alarming price increase of 8.5%. the largest in about 40 years. Now, financial support, as in donations for nonprofits, held steady in 2022, that first part of the year, but because they weren't also increasing at the same rate as inflation, that meant that nonprofits were taking a hit. So that also means that as a result of this inflation, some donor reports that have started to emerge in 2022 are showing that donors are intending to donate less to charity this year to compensate for those rising expenses in their own personal lives. But that doesn't necessarily mean that donors care less about their favored charities or causes. You know, everyone has to make some difficult decisions when finances get tight. So what this means as a nonprofit is that you might need to get creative in order to keep donors and supporters engaged right now. One thing is to be transparent about how inflation is impacting your nonprofit. If you are a hunger combating organization and you have to pay for food and those prices are higher, tell people about it. Share your story. Share how you are being impacted and the work and the people you are trying to serve are being impacted by inflation. Those who can donate more might be motivated to do so if they have this transparent information. Secondly, if your organization does deal with items or services to accomplish its mission, so I mentioned the hunger or food insecurity example a moment ago, could be other things like building homes or providing basic needs items. Talk to your donors and supporters about ways they might be able to donate in kind, meaning donating those items directly to you or even the services you need as an organization. This could provide another opportunity for people to give that isn't specifically cash, but that might still help you offset some of these costs. Psychologically, there's just something about asking people for stuff that feels differently to people than asking for money. So even if finances are feeling tight to someone, they might still be inclined to donate items to causes that they care about. The third thing that I want to say about this is that it's really important to remember that your donors and your supporters are supposed to feel like friends to your cause and not just ATMs that you go to only when you need money. So it's important to keep them engaged throughout this whole phase of inflation, even if they aren't able to give as much financially right now. They're going to remember how you treated them and how you kept them engaged when things are looking better for them financially. And if they had a great experience with you, they're going to be inclined to support you when the time is right. So even if people can't donate financially right now, there are other ways to keep them engaged in your story and keep them connected to your cause, like inviting them to volunteer if they have the time to offer for that, or connecting to them through storytelling on social media and a newsletter. One final thing to consider if you are not already doing this, if you're a nonprofit that does deal in a lot of materials and supplies for your day-to-day activities and your programs, take a look at what bulk rates are available and what discounts are available for nonprofits at some of these larger stores like Walmart or Big Lots or Target, whatever's in your specific area. And I also know that a lot of these companies, if you just look for these opportunities, will offer grants or gift cards to purchase items from their store as well. So might help a little bit. The second thing that I want to point out from this independent sector report is the fact that few new small and medium-sized donors were gained over the past year. Some nonprofits on average have been able to retain some of their larger donors, but because these organizations have been unable to acquire new small and medium-sized donors, the overall size of their donor base, meaning the number of donors in the audience, did not grow. If your organization is one of those that has been able to retain larger donors over the past year or so, that's amazing and congratulations. But unfortunately, many smaller organizations rely on these small and medium-sized donations in order to sustain their work and their operations. So that means a flattening or even a decrease of small and medium-sized donors affects the whole nonprofit sector in the United States. But I have a theory about why this might have happened and what we can do about it. And if my theory is correct, then we'll be able to rely on a tried and true formula to get these donors back. Now, the formula I'm talking about is simply outreach, cultivate, and make the ask. You see, during COVID-19, our ability to meet with and find and interact with potential new donors face-to-face was greatly diminished. And we know that psychologically, people are far more likely to make a personal connection to your cause and thus be more likely to make a donation at some point if they're able to engage with you personally. So because interaction and relationship building is at the foundation of acquiring new donors, it kind of makes sense that these numbers have gone stagnant during a time when we couldn't see or talk to each other in person very much. To bring these donors back, you've got to see them, you've got to talk to them, you've got to appear where they are. So while my recommendation here is not some magical silver bullet, it's just, in my opinion, common sense. You've got to get out there and do some outreach, and now's the perfect time. People are coming out of a period where they were isolated and disconnected, and there was a lot of upheaval and turmoil across the whole world, and honestly, we're all just looking for a little bit of connection and purpose right now. And your organization and its amazing mission can be a recipe for that connection and that purpose. So get out there and do some public speaking engagements, table at events and festivals and fairs, get in front of people, find networking groups where people who might be interested in your cause are going to these events. Get out there and invite them to offer up their contact information, their email, etc., so that you can stay in touch with them, share updates, and eventually invite them to support your cause when the time is right. The third and final trend I want to talk about as part of this independent sector's state of the health of the US nonprofit sector is that the nonprofit workforce is stagnant right now. The average age of the nonprofit worker in the United States as of mid-2022 was about 44 years old. Now, for a little bit of comparison, this is actually younger than the average government worker in the United States, but older than the average private sector or business sector of the United States. And you might be thinking, why does this matter? Well, this matters because over the past several years, there's been a lot of dialogue in the nonprofit sector about an upcoming leadership deficit. And what that means is that nonprofit workers are aging and retiring, and we don't have enough young professionals to come in with the skills and the competencies needed to do this sort of work to take over in those leadership positions. And if we have this leadership and talent deficit, who is going to carry the work forward to create social change and impacts which we know can take decades to accomplish? There are all sorts of systemic reasons or issues that might be contributing to this, but there are a couple things that we can be doing in our own organizations to play a role in fixing it. One is to be mindful of and always be analyzing fair and equitable compensation practices for your organization. You've got to take care of your people so that they aren't in a situation that is part of the social issue that you're trying to tackle. For example, if your own employees can't afford to take care of their families and your organization is combating poverty, well, that kind of isn't a good look. But not only does fair compensation retain your current employees, it can also help attract younger nonprofit talent. Another thing you can be doing is investing in and allowing time for professional development in your organizations, making sure people have the opportunities and access to trainings to further their skills, especially inviting your younger employees who might not have as many opportunities for something like that to take part. And finally, you can target some of your outreach as an organization to these up and coming professionals. Make sure they're aware of your cause, understand what they're looking for in future job or career roles, and then make sure that you're accessible to them in case they might be a great candidate for you in the future. So those are the 3 trends I wanted to focus on from the report. I'd love to hear, what did you think? Are you experiencing some of these trends in your organizations today? How are they affecting you? What are you doing about them? Please share in the comments. As I mentioned before, if you're starting a nonprofit or developing a fundraising strategy, check out my website, foundertofulltime.com, for the trainings I've got there. I also do a newsletter for changemakers and nonprofit leaders, and the link to subscribe to that is in the description below too. Finally, I have a Facebook group called Change the World or Bust. We've got like 3,500. I keep doing these number reports and the number just keeps getting bigger, and I'm just so excited to have so many people in this group from around the world, 3,500 people who are all interested in making an impact in their own way in the group, chatting, learning from each other, and I hope that you can join us there. It's called Change the World or Bust. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.